third session, we'll deal with Amenhotep II. I think I'm just excited to talk about that. But I'm also excited to talk about this. We're going to be talking about how to flee materialism and pride. I want to start with this. And this right here is a colossal hand made out of marble. It is made around 1 to 2 AD, the Roman Empire. Housed in the Greco-Roman Museum in Alexandria, Egypt. And it's a great sight to see. Anybody guess how big this thing is? Because it could be a little trinket. Can't really see how big it is. If I had a little small couch here, it'd probably fit in it. Probably maybe most of this pew in the front. I don't know the exact measurements. I tried finding out how long it was. It's massive. It's huge. What do you think this hand is holding? Now keep in mind that this huge arm was part of the full sculpture. Okay? So imagine the pew being the arm and then the rest of it and how big this would have been. What this person is holding in his hand is the globe, the world. See, to Rome, they had the world inside the palm of their hand. They had power. They ruled over everybody. Okay? The known world at that time, the one that is just surrounded in the Mediterranean, all of that, they owned it. It was what they had power over. You see, what we need to remember is, when we're thinking about Egypt's history, it's not isolated to, the Egyptians, what we're thinking. There was a time that it was ruled by the Persians, and then later on it would be ruled by the Greeks. This would be the Ptolemaic period. In the book that I mentioned in the first session that's going to come out in the middle of this year, one of the chapters is written by a brother, and he's going to write about the Ptolemaic period. You remember Alexander the Great and how he took over everything, and then after that he died, really young and all of a sudden, and so his generals had to really figure out who's going to take over what. Well, the general Ptolemy would be part of Egypt, and so the Ptolemaic period. And in that time, they still ruled, but then the Romans would come and then they would take over. It was part of their power in this statue. But also, here's another one. Let me go to this one. Marcus Aurelius. This is a colossal statue of Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius, the last of the benefactor emperors in the Roman Empire. And this is what reads on this little plaque on this statue. He appears here in his second portrait type as a crown prince or Caesar. He is dressed in the military cuirass costume, carrying a sword in his left hand, while his right rests on a cornucopia symbolizing abundance and prosperity of the empire. So you've seen pictures of cornucopia on Thanksgiving, that kind of horn basket that has all this fruit coming out. That's what he has his hand on. Is showing how much wealth that Rome has, but they also have power. So he has that sword ready to take it out if need be. And so there's power, there's abundance, there's wealth. Rome was very prideful on what they had. To them, they had it all. But eventually, Rome would be divided into two kingdoms, and those two kingdoms, the east and the west, would have different times where they would fall. And Rome is, yes, there is a Rome today. You can go to Rome, but it's not the same Rome as in ancient times. It's not the Rome like in the Bible times. That nation is gone. Pride and materialism clouded their judgment. They thought, who can take down Rome? I mean, who can really take us down? We're powerful, we have wealth, we have abundance, but they just didn't understand. Here's going back to sarcophagus, and we're going to be talking a bit about death when it comes to this session. He has a very ornate sarcophagus where a body would be put in, and it has spaces on it. Now I made it bigger so you can see the middle somewhat. Can you kind of make out, there's a face right here, and then there's something on the head. Now, you may not be able to see it, but on it, there are like long little rope things coming out. That's Medusa. The snakes that were coming out of her head. Why do you think they put Medusa on there? Now, to us, for Greek mythology and Romans would adopt that. We think, well, this is just interesting. It's very fascinating. We'll make movies out of it and things like that. But for them, it was much more. This was a beast, a monster, not necessarily a god. It was more of a monster that protected you when you were dead. The evil spirits would not mess with your soul because they would see Medusa's face and then they would go away. This is what they really believed. It wasn't just like entertainment for them. They really believed that they had this protection from this beast if they just put the face on there. Okay? So I don't know who was actually in this sarcophagus, but whoever it was, now they're facing the sad reality that their money was used in vain. This is not cheap to make. Okay? This is for the wealthy, the ones with power, and they put this for protection. Well, now they're having to learn the hard way. It's not how it works. It's not how it works. Now, that was the Greeks and the Romans. Pride and materialism would be committed by the Egyptians, but it would be done, I would say, on a grander scale. Now, it depends how you look at it. With the Greeks and Romans, I mean, it was more spread out, yes. But Egypt, in what they created, based on their false ideals and their false religion, it would be on a grander scale. What are we talking about? We're talking about the tombs and the pyramids. Now, there's a time in Egypt's history that's called the prehistoric time. We're not talking about cavemen and all that. It's called the prehistoric or prehistory times because it was a time where people were not recording things down. So prehistory, before history was being recorded. In that time, they weren't as rich. They just came out of, the Tower of Babel and God sent them somewhere else and they came here and they didn't have much money. And what was happening was they were being buried in the sand. A person would die, bury him in the sand. What would happen in a very hot, dry climate if you bury someone deep in the sand? Their body is going to be encased, but it's also going to be really dried up. The sand is going to soak up all that moisture, and what's going to be left is what we've known as mummies. And so perhaps that is where they got the idea, if we just enclose someone and dry out all the water out of their bodies, we just deplete it of all that, then they'll be able to be preserved. Well, this is what they started to do. When they became wealthier, and they accumulated more power, and they established kings, the pharaohs, they would basically say, well, we need to be mummified, and we need to create these big buildings for us so we can be housed, so our body can be housed. And so this would, where we see the pyramids. Well, let me just go back. Now, this is a mummy. They would encase it. Interesting to note that this is the mummified body of Amos. Amos was the one who did not know Joseph. And we got to see him. And so you can see that their body is preserved. In their minds, if they were to preserve the body, then they would be alive still. They would exist. The greatest punishment that one could ever receive was to have their body not mummified or not taken care of or just completely destroyed. If a fire just killed someone and their body was non-existent, that person would not exist anyway. That was a huge punishment. And so they did this because they wanted to stay alive forever. Well, that's not what happened as far as what in the way they think. Here's Luxor Temple. They would build these big edifices. Um, this huge obelisk would be on there with inscriptions on it and symbols. There was another one right here, but it's actually in Paris now, and Egypt is trying to get it back, and there's a big old feud over it. But there's this huge temple, and if they were to create these statues, then they would be able to preserve their memory. And if they were able to preserve their memory, then they were able to stay alive in that way as well. And that's why, you go to Egypt and you see the names of the pharaohs all over the place. They're on stones, they're statues, they're just all over, because in their minds, if their name is written somewhere and their image is somewhere, then they can stay alive. They can still have power. They can still have some kind of role. They can have their abilities still. But sadly, now they're having to learn that that's just not how it works. It's not how it works. And all their temples are, it's great and majestic when you see it, but it is also not the way they made it. It's decaying, stones have fallen down, and, there's trash everywhere because, now the Islamic people have now taken over the country, and it's not really their history, so they don't really care about this stuff. They throw their trash everywhere. There's trash all in there, okay? And so it's not taken care of, and now they have to know their work was in vain for all that they did. They also have, this goes on for a couple of miles, all these different sphinxes, where they would put their face on it to show that they're connected to this lion with power. And so here's a couple of miles of just this. Think about how much money was put into this, how much energy, time was put into all of this. And notice how big they would make their statues at times. This is a brother that went with us, David Sicard. His wife, Julie Sicard, and their daughter, Trudy Sicard, went with us, me and my wife. And you can see how big these things were. And this was their way of saying, look how powerful we are. We're like gods. We tower over everybody else. Sadly, that is just not how it works. And so they would start to build pyramids. Djoser was the first to build a pyramid. And this is around the year 2650 BC. We're talking about 2600 years before Christ. Which means that this pyramid, the step pyramid built by Djoser, this would have been seen, highly likely seen by Abraham. Whenever he came to Egypt, that's the time Abraham lived. At the same time, he would have came, and very possible he would have seen this pyramid. So it's pretty fascinating to know that we're looking at something that has stood the test of time. Now, it is, there's parts of it that are breaking down, yes. It's not exactly the way it was built, but something is still there for us to see. We clearly see it's a pyramid, and we can go around it. It's this huge complex of different things going on. There's other pyramids around it, and there's different mortuaries and courtyards, and it's just huge place. I mean, it probably has its own zip code, if it has a zip code. I mean, it's huge. And they built this, why? Well, to get ready for the afterlife. They needed a place where they can be housed, where they're mummified and they're still alive somehow, some way, and they have this house. But it reaches to the heavens so that the Pharaoh could have a way to connect to the sky. They would be able to be closer to heaven. And then there was places in there where they believed that Pharaoh would walk around and do things and run around and do everyday tasks. This is what's going on in their minds. Little did they know that thousands of years later, people like us would go in there and just take it out and put it in a museum. It's now we pay for it and look at it and we walk away and go back home. They had a false religion. And this is the way they thought. Sneferu would come and he would make some pyramid, or a pyramid, it's called the bent pyramid. You notice that this one kind of has an odd shape on top. This is really because they got the math wrong. And so by the time they got around here, they realized, hey, wait a minute, this is not working out too well. We went a bit more this way. We have to go now inward, and now there's this bent. Well, Sniperoo had to make another one, which was better, which tells us two things. The pyramids, they're great. As far as like their construction, it's a mystery. How did they get all these stones up there? I mean, how did they do this? And how did they take stones that were really found hundreds of miles in a place called Aswan? It's this place where they would take all these stones and drag it hundreds of miles. How did they do that? And how did they get all these stones up on top of each other? And so there is this, grandeur to it, this mystery. But it's pyramids like this that also tell us that there was trial and error involved in it. There were times they made mistakes. And I'm pretty sure someone died because of that. But, the bent pyramid, it had to just stay there. They couldn't just tear it down. But this other pyramid, Siniseret pyramid, it looks like a big blob. It's just this pyramid that just fell apart because someone didn't want to take the time to go find stones, so they went ahead and made it out of mud brick. What do you think is going to happen over time? Because there are times it does rain over there, not a whole lot, but when it does rain, well, what do you think is going to happen? The mud brick's going to go away. It's not going to last. And so there were times where they, needed to get math right and they didn't. And so your child is asking you, why do we need math? You can show them pictures like this and say, if you ever want to build something, you got to get your math right. And so they didn't do that. What's interesting about the pyramids is that it's not isolated to Egypt. We always think, pyramids, Egypt, and we connect that, and that's the only place that it happened. Interestingly, there are pyramids in Sudan. There are pyramids in Mexico, and also in Iraq. There's not the exact pyramid, but they're called ziggurats. It almost looks like the step pyramid. There's other places that have it. Why do you think different nations across the globe had this idea to build this cone-shaped triangle-type plate? It's actually four sides. Actually, it's not even a triangle. It just looks like it if you're looking at it, from the side. But it reaches towards the heavens. Where did they get this idea? Where did it all start? Well, the Bible tells us in Genesis chapter 11. Well, go ahead and turn with me to Genesis chapter 11. Genesis chapter 11. Genesis chapter 11, verse 1. Now the whole earth had one language and one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Then they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, come, let us build ourselves a city, and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. That coincides perfectly with the thinking of the Egyptians. They wanted to be closer to the heavens, and they wanted to make a name for themselves. Look at verse 5. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And the Lord said, indeed, the people are one, and they have all one language. And this is what they begin to do. Now nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. Come, let us go down there and confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they ceased building the city. Therefore its name is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from where the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. Now before this, in chapter 10, it's not necessarily in chronological order. Chapter 10 gives a genealogy. And then chapter 11 backtracks into part of that to show you what happened in that genealogy. So go back to chapter 10. I want you to notice verse 13. We'll start verse 11. From that land he went to Assyria and built Nineveh, Rehoboth, Kala, and Resen between Nineveh and Kala, that is the principal city. Mitzrayim begot Ludim, Anaman, Luhabim, and so on. He goes on to different names. That word Mitzrayim, that is the Hebrew word for Egypt. Where do they get their start? Well, we have here in Genesis chapter 10, he came from Ham. Well, Mitzrayim is the Egyptians. And so whenever Mitzrayim people, whenever they left, they went to what we know as the land of Egypt. It wasn't called that at that time, but they went there at the North African area, and they went there and they established themselves. They weren't rich to start off with, but everywhere else that this word Mitzrayim comes in the biblical narrative, it's translated as Egypt. That comes from the Greek name for Egypt, but it is Mitzrayim. You think about this. Whenever they left and were basically sent off, they went to that land. They didn't do it right away. But as their ancestors told stories about what happened and why they had to leave where they were, later on their children would say, you know what, we're going to start making buildings again. We're going to reach the heavens again. How dare God take us out of that place? We're going to make our own gods. And we're going to reach the heavens ourselves, and we're going to make a name for ourselves. The Egyptians built pyramids that were meant to touch the sky. At the same time, the pyramids are very, very sad. Now, if you were to go there, you will be in awe. It was great. I mean, looking at this awesome work, you're thinking, how did they do this? I mean, it is possible. There are different theories on how they did it, maybe going around, making the stones this way, or making certain ramps. I mean, there's all these possibilities. But either way, it's so breathtaking to see it. It's so massive. These things are huge. These things are massive. I think I have one over here. Here's the red pyramid. They're just... I got different pictures of pyramids. It's fascinating to see them. But as fascinating as they are, it is very sad because of the reason they built them. They built them because, well, they wanted another home for Pharaoh, because he was going to be in there and live his life with all his treasures in there. But sadly, that's just not how it worked out. I'm going to take time to show you a video. Get your minds thinking about what was inside the pyramid. Some of us were able to go inside the pyramid. This is the red pyramid. So Dozier made that bent pyramid, didn't work out, so he made this red pyramid. Now it's red now, but back then it was white limestone. Well, that white limestone was stolen by people, and now it left the red rock underneath, and so it's now the red pyramid. Okay, that right there is the entrance, and I came down to the bottom, and so it's really far down, very steep, very scary. I'm afraid of heights, okay, but I had to get over that real quick if I was going to be able to go down there, okay. And if you don't like closed spaces, you're going to have to get over that. Let me just show you this. Gives you a little insight of the pyramid that go way down there. That's actually very low. Now I'm already short, but I have to duck down to go into this next part of the pyramid. And I just want you to see the structure. You look up, and that's what it looks like on the inside, and how it looks. And it's just very ornately done, very orderly, very great craftsmanship, as far as the rock. there's a little opening right here that you have to go into the next chamber. You got to crouch down. It's a very close space. There's a staircase, and in that door right there, you go into the king's tomb. That's where he would have been laid. But I didn't go up there. That shows the top portion of it. Whenever I came back out, someone told me, "Did you see that hole in the floor?" And it's supposedly somewhere right here. And I said, "No." And they said, "Oh, good. Because if you fall in that hole, you fall to your death." They didn't tell me that before I went in. But, you know, if you ever go in there, just know there's a hole of death just in there. But this is, in their minds, why are they making this? They're making this because they have a false thinking about the afterlife. And it drove them to make such grand things. It has mixed feelings. It's like going to the Roman Colosseum. You know, if you go to the Roman Colosseum, I've heard of other people going, and it's bittersweet. You see the grandeur of how the Romans made it, but then you have to remember the sad reality that in the middle, Christians were being killed. It's kind of that same thing. You see this pyramid and how it's being made. It's great, but then it's very sad because it was all based on false teaching. Pyramids were very, very sad when we consider the purposes. Let me just give you some more. It was a waste of money. It was a waste of money. Pharaoh could have made more structures that were more meaningful for people's daily life. He could have built homes for people. Instead, he made these big stone structures. And like I said, he has to go hundreds of miles to go get them. So here's inside how I go down. So here's gives you 150 feet, you know, really down. The top that we just saw, that's not the top of the pyramid. That's just the top of this little portion right here. It actually goes way up there. Can you imagine that? The king is only right here. But yet this whole structure is made for him. They had to drag all these stones from hundreds of miles and place it all up for what? So that we could go take him out and put him in a museum. He doesn't even know. I mean, well, he knows now, but at that time, he doesn't even know that that's going to happen because he believes this lie. Second, it was made so the Pharaoh could live a happy life in his new home. Well, first, he's not there, and he's not happy. Third, the pyramids help Pharaoh be remembered. How do we know what pyramids belong to what Pharaoh? Because they made sure that people would know. They put their name all over the place, they'd write records, they'd have artifacts with their names on it, and so we know exactly who it is. That's what they wanted. They thought in their minds, if I put my name on it and I have an image, I will live forever. And I will be remembered by everybody. Well, they are remembered, but for us as Christians, the memory is actually not that great. Yes, they were master builders, but they were also master sinners. Here are the Giza pyramids, very famous over there. Just think about this. They're wanting to reach the heavens through this. Let me show you how massive it is. You see, that's a person right there. It's another person. This is the entrance of this particular Giza pyramid. That's how massive this thing really is. This shows you some more pictures on showing you the scale of what they look like before I get to that. So, little did the Pharaoh know that all of this would be taken from them. Little did they know that their dead bodies would be taken out and put in museums. They did not learn their lesson from the Tower of Babel. They did not seek the true God. But they did not seek the truth of the afterlife. And sadly, the pharaohs and many Egyptians are all in torment for it. Another aspect to the burial process, like I said, is mummification. Interestingly, mummified bodies was not isolated to Egypt either. China practiced it. South America, you got the Incas who did. You got Japan, you got Taiwan. Different nations throughout the world. Whenever they left the Tower of Babel, they kept some of these ways of thinking. For Egypt, at least, this was a way to prepare for the next life. If their body was preserved, they could live forever. Here's another aspect to the Pharaoh burial. They were buried with their treasures. This is a famous one, right? King Tut. This is housed in the museum in Cairo, and it is very beautiful. Maybe not the greatest picture, but you know, you kind of have to take pictures very quick because you know things you got to keep moving. But there was so much gold in this place that he was buried. He died around 19 years old, and he was buried with his treasure. Not only this, I want to show you something else. This right here is the whole complex inside the tomb, if you will, that he was buried. But really, the tomb is like a little home. It has all his possessions. You know, he can walk around. He has a lounging area. It's like, what is he going to do when he's there? In their minds, he's going to be in this room doing daily activities. So he's going to need this, he's going to need this, and he's buried with all his treasures. What a waste of money. All this gold that was just placed in there. I'm sure that people suffered for this. It's all a waste. 1922, someone would find the tomb and take all the treasure out. Is this still a problem today? And I would say yes. These things were created because it's the products of materialism and pride. Now, I'm a preacher, and so I've done my fair share of funerals and been to funerals. And some of the gravestones I've seen, I would say, are truly a waste of money. Now, I'm not against gravestones altogether. You want to put a gravestone with a picture and a name for memory, that's fine. But there are some that are just way over the top. I saw one. Now, I don't know the backstory of this, but you know, structures and stones and things like that are made, they're meant to give the impression or teach something. Okay, so on a gravestone that I saw, there's this humongous shoe on it. It's a high heel that's zebra striped. Okay, now if you know this person, you know, I'm not trying to make fun of this person. Okay, I'm not trying to make light of something, but I'm giving something very serious here. This person, whoever it was, wanted to be known for their love of shoes. Now I want you to think about that. How much are gravestones? Just the regular ones, just a block that has a name. They're expensive. Now can you imagine having someone sculpt this entire shoe and then color it? It's all colored. You can be on the other side of the cemetery and you can see it. That's what people do. Also, we can look at actors and what they do. Just to give you one, you all know Nicolas Cage? He's already built his tomb, by the way. It's already been built. He knows exactly how it's going to look. It's a 9-foot tall pyramid, of all things, right? He makes this white pyramid, because back then the pyramids would have been white because of the white limestone. But he wanted to make it like that. Now, no one knows how much it costs, but at the time it was built, that was the time he started to have financial troubles. So think about that. Now, if I'm dead, what good is a 9-foot pyramid? Is that going to save me? Is it going to help me live a better life in the afterlife? Another one is Whitney Houston. Y'all know Whitney Houston, right? You know how she was buried? She was buried with $500,000 worth of jewelry. She was buried with her jewelry. And you think, oh, this is what the ancients did. This has nothing to do with us. Oh, yes, it does. People today act just like this. Actually, I would say even worse. You know, Whitney Houston didn't want her jewelry to be stolen, so you know what she did? Her and her jewelry is encased in concrete. Her body and jewelry are in concrete, so no one could ever steal it. Not only that, you go there today, and what you'll find is there are security guards. Every single day since the day she died, there are security guards guarding the place so that no one will ever steal her body or treasures. You think this doesn't happen today? It happens today. Idolatry, materialism, pride, and misunderstandings of the afterlife are still plaguing the world today. What about present-day Egypt? Present-day Egypt. Missing some slides here, but it's all right. There's some more mummies. Present day. Now, the Egyptian religion, the ancient religion, I wouldn't say that it's totally gone. There are some gods that still kind of stick around in different portions. Like, there was a train station that had a big god on there. But really, the big religion out there is Islam. The Muslims are a really big religion out there. They have false ideals of the afterlife. It doesn't coincide with the Bible. Now, to them, there's a day of judgment, but it's not like the Bible says. Muhammad has said there's different signs to look for, there's different stages to the last day, and there's all these things. There's like 70,000 who won't even be judged. I mean, there's all these different things. They all pray towards this, towards the different direction, and they have these loud sirens that go off, an intercom system that tells people they need to pray at a certain time. So false religions are still there, especially about the afterlife. But also, this is present-day Egypt. Now, I showed you some of the great sites to look at, even though they do have trash around them. Really, most of Egypt looks like this. Run down. Everyone's in poverty. Things are just not looking good. Most people live in these apartment complexes that are broken down, and it just goes for miles and miles. Thousands of people that are just stuck in all of these apartment buildings. And poverty is a huge problem over there. Now, why do I show this? Because there's another side to Egypt. Now, it's very small compared to the rest of Egypt, but it is there. It is a place called New Cairo City. The last day that we were there, we were able to go to New Cairo City. New Cairo City, I would couple it with what we think of like Dubai, this futuristic city with no problems and like no trash, and everybody's dressed in nice clothes, and it's just like this huge place that has all the government people and the leaders and the rich people. We were able to go there, and we went to one of their malls. Here's a picture of the mall. So, going back, that's Egypt. That's the picture that you will see most of the time. But then you go to New Cairo, and this is what it looks like. Now, this is just one portion of their mall. Their mall, I would think it has several zip codes. It's huge. I mean, it has to have this huge screen, and then you have to use your hand to navigate where you want to go. And it shows you how to get there. I mean, it's huge. Now, I've been to gallerias here in the States, like the Dallas Galleria, and it's very, very beautiful and artwork and things like that, but it was nowhere near this. Most of the country is in poverty, and then one section has all this money. It's just like this night and day. Now, why do I bring this up? I'm not saying that everyone in New Cairo City is prideful or materialistic, because you can be rich and still even be a Christian, a faithful Christian. It's possible. Now, so I'm not saying that everybody there is greedy or anything like that. But when you go to New Cairo City, you can see, generally speaking, that is the tone. That's the tone of the people. Went to the mall, and the only poor people that were there were the cleaning people. And it was heartbreaking to see how the rich people were treating the cleaning people. You see this man who was sweeping up the dirt off the sidewalk, and then someone comes to him, finishes his cigarette, throws it at his feet, and then stomps on it to where it's hard for him to sweep it up. Clearly did it so he's being mean to him. But the poor person kept his face down, just started sweeping up the cigarette. That was kind of what you saw. I went into the bathroom, and there they have bathroom attendants, kind of like you you see in different movies and different places. And the bathroom attendant was coming out, and I was coming in, and we kind of bumped into each other, and he got really scared. And he kind of went down, and he said, I'm sorry. Like as if I was going to hit him or something. And I said, no, it's okay, and kind of threw him off. It kind of gave me that feeling like there was night and day when it came to those who were rich and those who were poor. Now, I'm not saying that every rich person there in New Cairo City is like that, but it definitely is there. The sense of entitlement, the sense that we are greater than the rest of Egypt who lives in all these slums. Do you want to know what the aim of New Cairo is? I saw a billboard sign there. It was for housing in New Cairo, and it said this: live like a Westerner. You know what that means? They're trying to be like us. That's what they're striving for. Now, I'm not saying that everybody in America is like this. The point is, the problem that's over there, it's because of what's over here. They want to live like us, the rich people do. They want to be like Westerners. How can we be like them? Now, 1 Timothy chapter 6 tells us, commands for the rich. And there are ways to be rich and still be benevolent and faithful, yes. But the point is, Satan still tempts people today for this same, in this same way. The lessons for us: first, pride is a sin. Prideful individuals make statements like this: nobody's going to tell me what to do. They should know who I am. That was the character of the Egyptians, and that's really the problem for prideful people today. And they may even agree with what the Bible says. The Bible says concerning alcohol, abortion, and money, and so on, that we shouldn't dive into certain sins, but I'm going to do it anyway because no one's going to tell me what to do. And so they run to false teachers. Teacher, tell me something good. Tell me that what I am doing is going to be okay at the end. And they find it. That was the problem in Egypt. It's the problem today. Wise man of God says in Proverbs 21 and verse 4, a haughty look, a proud heart, and the plowing of the wicked are sin. That's the Old Testament. Still true today. Jesus said in Mark chapter 7, 21 and 22, for from within, out of the heart of men, proceed what? He gives a list of things, and one of them is pride. Paul tells Timothy a list of sins that would be present in the last days, and they would cause troubles. They would cause perditions. And one of them was pride. Pride hurts people. Men will be lovers of themselves. There are 3 avenues that Satan will tempt us: for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Vainglory of life. This is exactly how Adam and Eve fell. And so it goes even farther. It goes all the way to the beginning. All the way to Egyptians. And it's the same for us. We need to be careful. There are many areas of life where pride can take place. People can fall to pride due to their possessions. That's how they were. Their race. That's how they were. Their body. Look at my body. That's how the pharaohs were. Look at my body in this sculpture. Not how they really looked. Look at the sculpture that I have made. The gender. Maybe if someone says males are better. Females say females are better. And so there's this pride when it comes to gender. Intellect. Well, I have all these degrees. Nothing wrong with degrees, as long as they're used correctly and for the right reasons. But some, it gets to their head. Well, I have a PhD and you don't, so I don't want to hear what you have to say. That's pride. Standing in society. Well, this is where I am. This is my family. And maybe the religion. This is my family's religion. How dare you tell me that I'm wrong? God prophesied that Egypt would fall because of their sins. Now, I know time is escaping, but I want us to turn really quick to Ezekiel chapter 29. I'm just going to go ahead and start reading. Ezekiel 29. In the 10th year, in the 10th month, on the 12th day of the month, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and prophesy against him and against all Egypt. Speak and say, Thus the Lord God, This is chapter 29, verse 3. Behold, I am against you, O Pharaoh, king of Egypt, a great monster who lies in the midst of his rivers, who has said, my river is my own. I have made it for myself. But I will put hooks in your jaws and cause the fish of your rivers to stick to your scales. I will bring you up out of the midst of your rivers, and all the fish in your rivers will stick to your scales. I will leave you in the wilderness, you and all the fish of your rivers. You shall fall on the open field. You shall not be picked up or gathered. I have given you as food to the beasts of the field and to the birds of the heavens. Then all the inhabitants of Egypt shall know that I am the Lord, because they have been a staff of reed to the house of Israel. When they took hold of you with the hand, you broke and tore all their shoulders. When they leaned on you, you broke and made all their backs quiver. Therefore, thus says the Lord God, surely I will bring a sword upon you and cut off from you man and beast, and the land of Israel shall Egypt shall become desolate and waste. Then they will know that I am the Lord, because he said, the river is mine, and I have made it. You go to all these sites that are found in Egypt, and as majestic as they look, you also should take notice that there's no one living in those places. It's all barren. Now, yes, there's modern cities around it, but the ancient parts, no one lives there anymore. The ancient parts are barren. They're dry and dusty, and they have trash everywhere. God said that they would eventually be taken out. They were so prideful, they could make these big things, as if God forgot what happened in the Tower of Babel. But it just wasn't so. They were materialistic, and we have to be careful with that as well. We have to be content. We need to examine ourselves, and we also, now I'll just end with this, we will be judged after death. We brought nothing into this world, and as certain will carry nothing out. 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 7. That is something the Egyptians did not understand. And people today do not understand that. We didn't come in with anything, and when we go out, we're not going to take any physical things. But we will be judged by the way we lived. John chapter 5, verse 28, 29. Matthew chapter 7. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. 1 Corinthians 15. We have all these to talk about the end of the last day, the judgment day. The Egyptians thought that they were preparing. They did not prepare to meet Jehovah. Now, some might say, well, they didn't really know the true God. They tried the best they could, and they made up their own gods. That was the best that they could. No. They had the world around them. Romans chapter 1, they could see everything around, right? Verse 20. They knew that some being had to create, but they went the lazy way. They said, well, we don't really know who the God is, so we're going to make our own gods. So we're going to make the laws that go with our gods, instead of truly seeking who was. God would have shown himself in a way where he would be their people if they would have went back to him. They were under patriarchal law, but they just didn't go back to God. We have to remember 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 10. We will all appear before the judgment seat of Christ. And he's not going to judge us on how much material things we had. He's not going to ask, did you all do what I said to make that big city stores mall? Did you all go in there and acquire as much attire as you could? Okay, well, come on into heaven. That's not what he's going to do. He's going to say, how did you view this? Was this your love? Was it wealth? Was it power? America has a big problem with pride. I mean, it's part of what we say. We're proud to be an American. We have to be careful with that. Now, I'm not saying not be happy. We should be happy we're in a country that's free. But pride has no place in the Christian mind. The Bible tells us to let that go. America can be taken out as fast as anybody can think. We have to make sure that we're right with the Lord before it's too late. Thank you for your attention.